You're listening to Thursday Night AMP on the Angry Marks Podcast Network.
Hello, everybody.
Good evening, Abby. How are you feeling, and how's that cat in your drain pipe doing?
That thing is the fucking devil.
Cats are not devils. They're just upset when they're hurt. That's all it is.
This thing looks like it just crawled straight out of hell.
I'll take your word for it, but all cats are great to me. And speaking of cool cats, let me introduce returning to Thursday Night AMP, Frank Vaughn, a.k.a. Nikes the Sneaker Pimp.
Hola, ¿cómo está? I have 15% on my cell phone, so I will be here until either that runs out or my wife's patience does.
Well, let's hope we can get to the topics you wanted to talk about first. And to expedite that matter, I will quickly introduce Jason Harland, a.k.a. the Great Sudoku, who apparently is now playing Pong with his Skype connection. Jason, hello. Well, he's disappeared into the ether. We can't hear him, so I'll wait till he reconnects and go ahead with our first topic, because I know Frank had a few things to say about the whole situation with Paige. I'll give a brief summary of my position before he launches into his. I think that right now there are a lot of people casting aspersions on Paige for her choice in boyfriend, her choice in lifestyle, and basically her choice to pretty much not want to be in WWE anymore, even though she's still under contract. And to all of these things, I say she is a grown woman. She can make her own decisions. And even if she's dating an older man, that's just her business, not ours. And with that, I toss it to Frank.
Okay, yeah, I mean, to a certain point, who she's dating is her business. But come on, how many times have we seen this before? Seriously. My contention on Facebook the other day was that she's gone from an eminently talented wrestler, and she is. She is a world-class wrestler. She, maybe more than anybody, is who really launched this whole, I don't know, what do you want to call it, Divas Revolution or Women's Wrestling Revolution or whatever it is we're calling it these days. I mean, she was responsible for really getting that thing kicked off. Her feuds with AJ were epic. I mean, they really were. So, but she's gone from being that to being what I basically look at as a ring rat. I mean, she's all over Del Rio now, who's pissing away his career in WWE. Now look, this is a man who has options. Okay, obviously. Now he's the president of, what is that MMA company? Combate. Whatever they're calling it.
Combate right. Americas.
So, okay, so he has options. You know, he's been around the block. He knows what's going on. He could go back to, you know, Lucha Underground, or he can go to AAA, or he can do whatever it is he wants to do with himself. Paige is eminently talented, but she does not have the body of work that he does to be as marketable as he is. Okay? So my deal is, I mean, she's 22? She doesn't have the body of work that he does.
Not the body of work for length of time, but she's been working since she was 12 or 13 years old, so she does have more work than you might know about.
Well, maybe, but she doesn't have as much as he does. And is this relationship going to last?
And not the exposure that he does, because she wrestled in her parents' company in a little place in Europe.
So, yeah, she's dating who she's dating, and that's her business, but it ain't going to last. I'm just going to call it now. I'm planting my flag on that claim. It ain't going to last.
He's still married.
Well, then there's that. Okay, so, I mean, she has gone, in my opinion, she has gone from being one of the premier wrestling talents in the women's division of WWE to basically being a ring rat. And she's following him out the door. Look, they're both a couple of wellness policy violators at this point. She's on her second strike. He just did a 30-day stint. This is not a good mixture of people. This is not a good mixture of situations. And I hate to see her throw away what she has to go chase something that likely isn't going to be there in 6 months.
Well, you have to let people make their own mistakes, though. If indeed it is a mistake, you can't tell her, don't do this. It's just going to make her do it all the more. You just have to let her do it, and if she falls on her face because of it, that's how she learns. That's life.
Yeah, I agree. You have to let her make her mistakes. I don't have to like her making them, though. Especially when I can see the future. I can see what's going to happen to her.
And but saying you've got to let her make her own mistakes, that's what you say about a teenager. That's not what you say about a grown-ass woman.
Well, she's
And
borderline
saying,
between...
saying
she's young enough to be borderline between the two in my eyes, because I'm old enough to be her dad.
Yeah, but saying, just telling her not to do it's going to make her want to do it more. That's how you talk about a little kid. That's how you talk about a teenager. That's not how you talk about someone who's a grown adult and is making adult decisions.
Yeah, I just hate to see somebody have the golden goose and just,
Piss it away.
let it go like that. Just piss it away like that. I mean, sure, she can go back to the Indies and she can rake up money and make a decent living for herself. She can follow him around as long as he's willing to put up with her. But the thing is he's not going to put up with her for too much longer. I mean, he's Alberto Del Rio, or he's Alberto Rodriguez, or he's Alberto El Patron, or he's Alberto El Presidente. This guy, he can pull it anywhere he wants to, okay? You think he's going to put up with her for very long? Seriously.
Well, I want to pick a slight bone of contention with this whole idea of her pissing it away, because it's obviously not a good fit for her right now in WWE anyway. Take away the whole wellness policy violations that everybody's focusing on. Take away the fact that she's chasing away Alberto, and we can talk about whether or not it's patronizing to tell her what to do or if it's her own business or not. Let's take all that aside, and let's talk about the one thing that really gets to the crux of the matter. She says she needs surgery for a neck injury. They say she doesn't. What are you going to do when you get to loggerheads at that point? She believes she needs the surgery. She's in pain. I have no reason to doubt her on that, because wrestling is a tough business. You do get hurt a lot, and neck injuries are the worst kind of injuries. In fact, that's how Hideo Itami ended up out of the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic, because the poor fucker landed on his neck and is lucky to still be alive right now. So, I'm going to say it doesn't do her any good to stay in WWE at this point if they don't want her to get the surgery that she probably needs.
Well, and in terms of whether she needs it or not, I'm going to tread lightly on this subject because I've had neck surgery. I've had a cervical fusion done in my neck, and those things suck. But what sucks even worse than the surgery is the need for it, okay? So I will tread a little lightly on this because I don't know for sure. I haven't seen her medical chart. I'm not a doctor. I haven't heard her side of it or theirs other than I need it, no you don't, okay? But I do want to point out that this WWE is the same company that refuses to allow Daniel Bryan to wrestle because they're concerned for his safety. Mm. This is the same company that agreed with Edge that he needed to quit wrestling. So it's not like they're known for just being medically irresponsible with their wrestlers, okay?
Well, this is also the same company that told CM Punk he was fine when he had a growth the size of a softball on his back.
So what do you chalk this up to then? They just don't care about Paige? I mean, do you think that they just view her as disposable?
I think that it's pettiness. I think they're being vindictive. It's like, I think she could even break up with Alberto Del Rio at this point, and they would still want to punish her for Alberto Del Rio leaving. It's like, I think they've got a grudge against her. I think they've got a grudge against Alberto Del Rio. To a degree, I think they have a grudge against Daniel Bryan, too. I think the thing with Daniel Bryan and his concussions were them getting pissed that he's getting over. If you notice, it's only the one WWE doctor that wouldn't clear him. I think WWE plays politics with their medical staff a lot, and I think this is nothing more than WWE just being petty and playing politics.
Maybe. I mean, when you go back to the Daniel Bryan thing, though, I mean, he really had some serious issues. I can see WWE, and I'm not going to defend him in every case, but in the case of Daniel Bryan, I think maybe it probably was a decent idea that he not wrestle anymore. After all the symptoms that have come out from what he was experiencing after his latest concussion, I don't know if you can afford to screw with that anymore. I really don't.
How could every other doctor in the world clear him and say he's okay, but just this one guy in WWE who's questionable anyway when it comes to things like the wellness policy and playing favorites there, he's the one doctor that doesn't say okay.
Well, now the doctors I will say this, the doctors that we're citing as saying that he's fine are the ones that he went and found himself with his own money, okay? And I'm sorry, but I've seen enough professional athletes go get all the medical opinions to support their point of view that aren't necessarily true. They were just paid for it. Now, I'm not saying Daniel Bryan did that. I don't know for sure, but I can see both sides of that issue. I want Daniel Bryan back in the ring. I love the guy. I think he's the most over thing we've seen since I don't know what, okay? But at the same time, I also have to be concerned for these guys. Like Steve pointed out, this is not, these guys don't bake cookies for a living. I mean, it's not MMA where, the endings are predetermined or whatever, but they still have to go out there and do what we see them doing, and it is physically taxing, and it does hurt people.
Oh, yeah, I understand
surgery.
that. I understand that, but I still just find it odd with Daniel Bryan that he got all of these big-name neurologists who do this for a living and do it for football teams and do it for the Olympics and do it for every other place saying, there's nothing wrong with you, but the guy from WWE is saying, no, sorry.
And to further a point I made earlier and to bring this around full circle, where I'm not being patronizing towards Paige by telling her she can live her life and make her own mistakes is I would say the exact same thing about Daniel Bryan. If he wants to wrestle and if multiple doctors have cleared him to wrestle, I don't see why he shouldn't just because one WWE doctor stands in his way. Even if I don't think it's good for his health, it's his life, not mine.
However, if this were pre-June 2007, WWE would see it that way.
Well, of course, if they were just signing him and he had these issues, they would not even sign him.
No, I mean, do you understand what I'm saying? If this was before June 2007, we get the relevance
to the date. They're trying to be careful because they don't want, and plus they've got the concussion lawsuits hanging over their heads. They don't want to even take a risk, and that I can understand. But
they don't want another lawsuit, and they don't want another Chris Benoit. That's the bottom line.
I have a feeling that's probably why they didn't bring Kurt Angle back in because, they don't want somebody dying in the ring.
Well, not to mention the fact he was taking up to 50 Vicodin a day.
Yeah, I mean, but that's part of it. They've got these issues hanging over their heads, and they've got a public image to maintain. But on the flip side of that, it's like, I don't know. It gets so convoluted and everything. But getting back to Paige, if she needs surgery, she needs surgery. And if she got hurt in a WWE ring, then WWE I think they're contractually obligated to pay for her surgery.
Except they're saying they don't have to pay for it because they don't agree she needs it.
Well, once again, you've got one doctor saying yes, she does, and one doctor saying no, she doesn't. If they're
one's on the WWE's payroll and the other one's on Paige's payroll.
Yeah, so when I wrote all this up the other day for Top Rope Press, it's like it comes down to he said, she said, and the truth probably lies somewhere in the middle.
I think we can say the exact same thing about this continuing evolution in the stabbing of Alberto Del Rio. The truth is somewhere in all of these different stories, and we're never going to get the whole truth.
I think it was a homeless guy driving a clown car in the circus somewhere.
The homeless guy was drunk and he insulted Paige.
Actually, I'm glad you brought that up. I mean, listen, Steve, I understand what you're saying about, following the Star Trek Prime Directive on Paige's life and not interfering, but here's the deal. We've got wellness violations, we've got stabbings, we've got drugs, we've got discontent, we've got back and forth insults. Why does WWE need either one of these guys? Just dump them and move on. Listen, Paige helped kick off this whole women's revolution, but it's off and running, man. Since that happened, since she debuted and beat AJ for the Divas Championship, we've added Charlotte and Becky Lynch, and we've added Sasha Banks, and now Bayley's on board, and you've got all these people that are just running the women's division. Nikki Bella's back now. I mean, it's like, just cut her loose.
Yeah.
And that's what she wants. They just don't want to do it.
And honestly, though, if you look back at the timeline, Paige's issues really did not start until she did hook up with Del Rio. I'm not saying there's any correlation between the two. I'm just saying the timeline fits.
Yeah, I don't know what her backstage reputation was prior to this relationship, but this is now the second time WWE's had to cut him loose, and now he's taking one of their women wrestlers with him. And we can go back and forth over whether he's going to stick with her much past all this. I don't know, but that was just another shot in the face of Vince McMahon for Del Rio to leave again and take Paige with him.
I think you kind of have to look at it as two separate instances, though, and two separate people. It's like I don't see it as Del Rio screwing over WWE. I see it as WWE taking a shit on Del Rio. Del Rio saying, "I don't like the direction you're going with me. I'm going to ply my trade on the Indies and in Mexico. Peace." I don't see it as him taking Paige with her. I don't think he had this grandiose master plan. They just happened to hook up, and whether Paige stays with him or not, I don't think has any bearing on Paige's current situation, other than WWE being petty.
And when you want to talk
I think
about
it's got
WWE,
some bearing on it.
When you want to talk about WWE being petty, breaking them up by putting them on separate rosters in the draft was an example of WWE being petty.
Vince likes doing that, though. He's got a history of doing that. It's like he gets some perverse pleasure out of it.
Well, this is the same guy that made money off of a real life, cheating situation with Matt Hardy and Edge and Lita. He's not afraid to, get to meddle in people's relationships like that. But again, listen, Vince McMahon is not the most upstanding person on earth. He would, run over his mother's grave to make $1 off of it. We all know that. We've known that for 35 years. But at the same time, I don't see why WWE needs this trouble. I don't see why Alberto and Paige need this trouble. If they want to go off and do their thing, however long it lasts, whatever they end up doing, and WWE doesn't want all this trouble that it's being caused, then everybody just shake hands and go your separate ways.
I couldn't agree more with that. I think it's high time they let Paige loose.
Yeah. Because Paige is Paige is a fantastic wrestler, and she does have a future in the business if she wants it, okay? But her name is never going to be on top of that marquee in WWE.
Not again.
Okay. So I don't think they're losing a whole lot by just cutting her loose, especially now that you've got established stars in Charlotte and Becky Lynch and Sasha Banks and, so forth and so on. And Bayley. I just don't think Paige is really that big of a loss at this point.
Right. And clearly they are not going to let her go easy. They are taking every step possible to make her look bad before they actually do cut her loose by actually releasing a statement to the New York Post saying that she didn't test positive for a prescription. She tested positive for an illegal substance, and they wouldn't even name what that was.
Right.
Well, we know it's not marijuana because they don't suspend for marijuana. They just fine. So that kind of, narrows down the list of what it could be.
But again, there's no repercussions on WWE if they're lying about this report. They could completely kayfabe it. This isn't USADA who would get in major trouble as a national agency for doing that. This is WWE who can put out whatever kind of results they want. They do it independently. They could be 100% lying. It could be the painkillers. It could be that Paige needs the surgery, and they're just kind of burying that.
Well, and they're walking right up to that line and stopping by not naming what it is that they think she popped for, or they want people to think she popped for. If they said, oh, she didn't pop the painkiller, she popped for cocaine, and it wasn't true, she would have grounds to sue them for libel. But because they're not naming any substances, they're not really sticking anything specific to her, there's not really a lot she can do about that.